Hello, you are viewing the lesson on how to do a newspaper report for Literature CA Task 2015. Okay, before we begin, you will need these three things. Firstly, your sorry wrong number notes. Secondly, a pen. And thirdly, if you can't quite hear what I'm saying, you might want to get some earphones. Right, so assuming you've got all of these, okay, basically what is a newspaper report? Okay, you pick up any newspaper nowadays, you'll be able to see the format, all of it is there already. Okay, but in this lesson, I'm going to go through the key elements of the report so that you will know how to plan it, how to do your layout when you guys write your newspaper report for sorry wrong number. Now the first one, okay, of course, every single newspaper report has a headline. Okay, this is not the newspaper name or the title, but rather this is the headline of the individual article itself. Okay, now it's got to be something that catches your attention, right? Because if it was a very boring headline, no one will want to read it. Okay, and of course, it's got to accurately sum up the story. Now, secondly, you've got the byline. This is basically by whom. So you can write your name here. Okay, sometimes you have the writer's specialty. For instance, Linda C corresponding for education, for instance. Okay, and lastly, the place line. Now, this is not really necessary. Sometimes in a newspaper article, you will see the first two words are maybe New York or Singapore or something like that. Okay, so this is basically where the story is located. Okay, next you have what we call the lead. Now this paragraph is very, very important. Okay, this is something that answers most of the 5 W's, which is who, what, where, when, why. Maybe why is not necessary, but it should have these 4 at the very least. Okay, so this is the opening section that basically orientates the reader. Okay, and then we've got the body, and this is when the detail comes in. Most important details always comes first. This was real advice given to me by an editor at SPH. Okay, of course it's got to be all factual. Okay, very important, if you want to have credibility in your newspaper article, you need to have quotes. Okay, what someone actually said. Okay, so for instance, you can quote Duffy. Okay, so for instance, Duffy claimed, Duffy alleged. Okay, all these words are used when you want to say something, that you want to quote something that someone has said, but you're not too sure if it's true. Alright, so you protect yourselves with words like that. Right, so when you plan, you need to refer to 3 things. Firstly, the text of the play. You will need this for accuracy, of course, and the sequence of events. Secondly, you will need quotes. So you need to refer to the questionnaire for the characters that we wrote down in during the court trial in class, if you remember. Thirdly, okay, you need to have a rough idea of what the crime scene layout was. Okay, you may not have the butcher sheet with you because it was group work, but you should know roughly because you were also participating in the drawing. Okay, you need to plan it somewhere. If you don't want to use the planning table, that's fine. Then use foolscap or something. Okay, you need to do a draft first. Now, let's move on to look at the model, okay, of a newspaper report. Okay, now you see all the things that we talked about just now, they are already here. Firstly, we have got a headline, which is interesting and at the same time is accurate. Secondly, the byline, okay, the name, the role, the date. Now, the date for your newspaper report should follow the era of sorry wrong number, so it cannot be 2015. Okay, go and do your research. In what year was the switchboard still in use? Okay, I'm guessing probably 1950s, 1960s. Okay, then the place sign, which is the location. Then the lead, which is the who, what, where, and when. Basically, this orientates the reader. Okay, next we have quotation. Now, the quote must be from someone reliable. So, for instance, the police, the authorities, maybe a key witness. Okay, so this basically makes up the body of your newspaper reports. The last line can be something like police investigations are still ongoing. Okay, if you need more examples, you can always pick up a copy of the Straits Times, pick up a copy of the New Paper. All these publications will show you what to do. Right. Next, okay, so after you're done with your draft, right, design your final piece. Okay, so you can use Microsoft Word, make it look like a real newspaper report. Okay, again, if you need examples, refer to Straits Times. Okay, that's a good example. Alright, the rubrics, okay, they have been given to you. They should be somewhere at the back of your package if I'm not wrong. Okay, now let's look at them. Okay, firstly, we'll be looking at how accurately you sum up the murder, the what, where, who, and when. So basically, if it's accurate and logical, okay, you've got at least 3 of these 4 W's, we'll give you 4 marks. This is basically your lead. Next, okay, the sequence of events. Okay, so it's got to be accurate and it includes key events, key conflicts. Okay, next. Alright, perspectives of at least 2 other characters. This is where your quotes come in. Okay, please take note in your task sheet, right, at the top it says Eloise and Mr. Stevenson could not comment because they were not the ones who interacted directly with Mrs. Stevenson prior to her death. So you cannot use quotations from those 2 characters. You can mention them. Okay, maybe you can say a source stated that Mr. Stevenson was doing this, or Eloise was doing this, or had an alibi, something like that. So the only people you can really quote from, okay, and to directly quote what they say is Duffy, okay, the phone operators, these people who interacted directly with her, they are the key witnesses. Okay, Eloise and Mr. Stevenson, they are not key witnesses. Okay, next, okay, this is the last part, which is a social comment by the reporter. This can come in maybe after you have done all of the rest. Okay, basically, this is 2 or 3 lines talking about your view of the situation. Okay, basically, what kind of conflict did Mrs. Stevenson face? Alright, when she was talking to the phone operators, to Duffy, ask yourself, what was the attitude that they showed her? And what kind of conflict is portrayed here? Okay, this is basically your comment on what society is like in that era. Okay, but of course you have to pretend to be in that era. Okay, let me give you an example of what a social comment can look like. Okay, so for instance, let's say we have written an article on the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf. Okay, so my article will be titled Pig's Narrow Escape from Wolf. Okay, so after the body, after everything, okay, let's say I'm a reporter in fairy tale land. Okay, then I would include my comment. So for instance, the conflict faced, okay, this would be external conflict, okay, but it's a different kind of conflict that Mrs. Stevenson faced with the phone operators, with the police. Okay, ask yourself what that is. Okay, so here, external conflict that the pigs faced with the wolf is not an isolated example. In fact, several pigs in today's society face the same problem. So here I am commenting on society. Okay, and lastly, although they are inherently different, the fairy tale government encourages them to get along for better harmony across species. Okay, so this is basically a comment on society. Now, you will not be able to use this very lines for the murder because this is obviously very different. Okay, so craft your own. If you're not too sure, please text me or ask me in class. Okay. Lastly, we have these 4 things that are basic requirements of a newspaper report. Firstly, of course, use of suitable formal fonts. Okay, Comic Sans is not a formal font. Next, varied font sizes for heading, subheading, and the body. Of course, you need to tell which is which. Okay, inclusion of an appropriate picture. Now, the picture can be your own drawing of the crime scene layout, or it could be a picture of a woman who is Mrs. Stevenson or Mr. Stevenson or anything else that you think is important. Okay, and lastly, we will see if you adhere to the newspaper report formats. Okay, and the total marks for this is 20. Okay, so now, what do you need to do? Firstly, you need to plan your newspaper article. I suggest you sketch this out instead of typing it straight away. Okay, make sure you've got all of these. Okay, and lastly, after you're done with your drafting, you can type your article in suitable font or font and format. Now, some of you may be asking, can I write it out instead? That's perfectly fine, okay, as long as you adhere to all the rubrics. Okay, so you will need to vary your font as well if you write it. Okay, so that's it for now. If you've got any questions, please remember to text or call me. Okay, thank you.